Hi guys, thanks for checking in. Lately I've received some questions about how I use my live setup and how I get my live tones, guitar tones and etc. And specifically how I use my MIDI foot controller along with my other gears and an amp to make it a very simple, easy to use system. So this video is all about that. And I'll take you through one by one all things that I use to get my live guitar tones. So here it is. Well, first of all, my guitar output cable comes into the input of the Nova drive. Straightforward. And then the output of the Nova drive goes into the front end input of my amp. Now, this MIDI cable right here, this is coming from my Nova system, and now we will move on to the back end of the Nova system. So here's the back end of my Nova system. So the first, we'll go one by one. So the first cable, this is coming out from the back end of the amp, which I'll show you in a bit. And this is the send of the amp, which goes into the line input of the Nova system. You have to be careful to put it into the line input and not the drive input. And then we'll have to set up the Nova system to receive line input instead of the drive input. And I'll show that to you in a second. Then the output, the left output, which is the mono output from the Nova, this one goes into the return of the amp. And I've marked it as, because I tend to forget stuff. So the output of the Nova system goes to the return end of the amp. Now the MIDI cables here, so they've got two MIDI cables, one in, that's an in MIDI cable, and that's out, MIDI out. So the MIDI in, this MIDI in is coming from the Behringer Fcb foot controller, MIDI foot controller. I'll show you in a second. And this MIDI out is going to the Nova drive. And through this MIDI out, Nova system sends commands to Nova drive, where you can change patches in the Nova drive without even touching the Nova drive, and everything's done by this MIDI controller, this MIDI cable, and this MIDI cable. So one thing to remember is that when you choose to put Nova drive in the amp effects loop, you have to select your input as line input, and that you do going to the levels menu in there, and then selecting the input. I've already selected as a line, so you can choose drive or line. You have to choose line as your source input. So in the back end of my amp, so this is the external channel switching jack input. So this is coming out from the MIDI controller, Behringer MIDI controller, going into the channel. And this is my effects loop. So this send jack is going to the Nova system's input, line input, and the return is coming out from the Nova system's left output into the amp's return. So this is my effects loop, and this allows me to put all the Nova effects in the amp's loop instead of in front, and I prefer it that way. I think it's more cleaner, more pristine that way. Now here's my Behringer Fcb1010 MIDI foot controller, and this is my controller for everything, including my Nova system, my Nova drive, as well as my amp channel switching. So with a press of a button, I can change channels in the amp. In the back end of my FCB, of my MIDI controller, I've got a jack plugged into the switch 1 input. So this one changes my amp channel when I press on any button here. When I press on any saved patch, through this my amp channel goes from clean to dirty, etc, etc. And this is the MIDI out. So through this MIDI out, MIDI data goes into Nova system, and that when I press a button for my patches, so this one changes Nova system, as well as, and then from the Nova system, another MIDI data is sent out to my Nova drive, which changes my Nova drive patches. Really simple, and it works without a second of a delay, without a millisecond of a delay. So just one button, and then my amp channel changes from here, and all my patches changes through a MIDI cable. So let me show you how all my switching is happening when I press buttons in the controller, and things are changing in everything else. So right now I'm in the clean mode, in the clean patch. So when I'm here, my Nova system patch is clean effects ready, and my Nova drive patch is number 1, and I'm in the green channel of my amp. So when I press crunch, my crunch rhythm patch, now watch, my Nova system has changed, my drive setting has changed in the Nova drive, as well as my amp has switched channels. So just with the press of one button, from clean to crunch. Now when I press my third patch, solo, I press that, and Nova system has gone into my solo patch in my Nova system, which is called Sweet Baby Jesus, because it's a sweet singing lead tone. And my Nova drive has changed into number 3, which is my setting for my solo tones, and I'm still in the crunch in my second dirty channel in the amp. Yeah, so super easy. Once you set it up, it's really easy. So clean, there you go, my amp has changed into clean mode, my Nova system has changed into clean, patch 1 for my cleans. When I press, so for my needs, I saved 5 patches, a clean. This is a clean solo, so with a little bit of dirt, some delay and modulation, etc. This is my crunch solo with some boost, delay, etc. My amp channel has changed, crunch mode. This is my crunch rhythm. Yeah, so those are the 5 buttons that I'm using in the FCB right now, and it's great for my live needs. So playing a clean song, I use that, and when it's time to play a clean solo, use that, patch number 7. It's time to play some rhythm, press that, and my amp has switched channels. Time to solo, press that, and everything goes into solo mode. There you have it. One big reason I love this setup is because, one, I have the ease of using this as a multi-effects unit, like any pedal board. One stomp and everything changes, everything that I need comes up. Plus, on top of that, say I'm playing a clean part, and then maybe I don't need delay or reverb in this clean patch, so all I do is just take it off, and then I have a very clean tone. It's good for funk stuff and whatnot. Yeah, and say I'm playing a clean channel again, clean tone again, and then maybe I'm thinking maybe I need to put in some distortion in, and maybe I need some distortion on the clean channel. All I press there on my Nova drive, distortion comes up, overdrive, distortion, overdrive comes up. And the great thing about Nova drive is that you can use distortion and overdrive together in parallel or in series, so that's great too. Yeah, so maybe sometimes in my crunch solo patch, maybe I don't need some modulation or chorus. I'll just take it off. Maybe if I need to put in some reverb, I can quickly put that in, and there you go. So it's very, very customizable while playing live. You don't need to. it's a kind of the best of the both worlds for me.